Right.
Okay.
And we'll go ahead and call the monthly finance committee meeting of the Kern Valley Health District to order at 1:01. Are there any changes to today's agenda? Changes?
I don't have any changes. Sorry.
All right, no worries.
Yeah.
Approval of last month's committee meeting minutes. We had a chance to look at those.
I did, and I didn't see any changes to them.
Okay. So we'll send that to the full board for consent. Next item is the public comment portion of the meeting. I don't see anybody from the public on Zoom here this afternoon. So we will dive right into the finance statements for February, and we'll start with the unaudited financial statements. Dave.
Thank you, John. Before I go into the month of March, you are all aware the significant financial news came about as a result of some activity that happened in April. So what I'm presenting today is going to be somewhat negative, but just keep in mind that when we report next month, the numbers will look much different in a more favorable light. So just wanted to caveat that because it might be kind of depressing today to see the March numbers.
Okay, yeah, just for the record, the agenda said February, not March.
Yeah.
So
Oh, man. I'll fix
I
that.
get an A minus, Heidi.
That happens so rarely.
That's why it hurts so much.
It's all good.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, table of contents is a little bit different. As a result of Catherine's request, we're going to start out this meeting to talk about supplemental programs, any update of any recent monies that have come in on the IGTs. So that's the new page 1. So having said that, here is the new page 1. And what I did is I broke it into 3 sections. The first top section is what's gone on this current year by month, by program. And it was important to me to compare the timing of the actual on top to the middle, which what we thought was going to be in the budget. For example, on line 13, I highlighted in red in the budget, we thought in February we were going to get the managed care HCLOF IGT payment of $1,892,000. We found out a couple months ago that the state decided to push back the payment on that. And so it's in next year's budget. In November is when we get that amount will come in November instead of what we thought was going to come in this current year. So we're going to lose about 1.9 million to the bottom line as a result of that delay. So it's not really a cut, but it's a payment that's coming in later in the year. I was a little disappointed when I also found out that just because they were late this year, does that mean they're going to be late again next year? And the last meeting I went to, they in fact confirmed that the following year's payment will also be delayed. So I was hoping to put in a double 1.8 million in budget 24, but as it turns out, they're saying that they're going to consistently be late on that payment now. So that was discouraging. But anyway, that will help explain the bottom line numbers when we get to it later. I do want to make reference to the payments that came in March. The 2 big ones from Kern Health Systems, the rate range of on line 4, $1,915,000, and another Kern Health Systems check came in for the QIP program of $1,036,000. Since then, in April, you can see we've put in the amounts. These are actual amounts that came in April of 2.6 million and 1.1 million. So that 3.7 million, along with the ERC payment of 3 million, that's $6 million in April. That'll obviously improve our cash position when I report the balance sheet and cash position in April should go up by about $6 million, which obviously is a big increase. So you can see there's not much left projected for the current year in May and June. So we expect to finish the year at $8,424,000. That doesn't come up to what we had budgeted of 11 million. Now, some of this line item 19, I'm finding out had to do with the Tehachapi money, about 700,000. That's still being discussed, and Adventist Health is in the process of possibly deciding not to take that money, which will cause us to get the increase again, but it hasn't happened yet, so it's hard to say. I put 0 in the actual here, but I'm not sure whether or not that Tehachapi money from Adventist. There's some legal issues on whether or not that's a money that they are approved to get, because they are now a for-profit and not a public hospital. So that's still in discussion, so we'll just kind of leave that open. Any questions or comments? You can see the budget for next year looks much better than the 8 million. We're up close to 10,700,000 for the 24 budget. So that's, and then we have this new program, line 30, which the following year will add another 2 million a year in IGT. So that'll be a big positive to our bottom line when the directed payment program kicks in on line 30. So any questions or comments? Does this help a little bit, Catherine? And
Yeah, it helps me know where it is and where it's coming from, which makes a big difference. It makes a difference to me because then I can see it instead of jumping from what we don't have and what we should have been getting and why we didn't get it. It just flows better for me. So thank you.
Yeah, well, it's a good idea. I'm glad you asked me to do that. Okay, so
is this this line item 19, was this some kind of a partnership that Chet did when he was a CFO?
Chet wrote a letter to Robert Landis, who is the CFO at Current Health Systems. It had some dollars attached to it. I was a little confused because I hadn't seen it was a commitment letter, and I haven't gotten any clarification from Robert Landis. I'm starting to think it had something to do with the extra Tehachapi money once Robert Landis came to the conclusion that that was money that the state said should go to us instead of them.
Oh.
So I think that's still up in the air.
Okay.
Because I got an email from Sharita Lane from District Hospital Leadership Forum, and she has given me some specific information about people high up in the California Department of Healthcare Services, in that they're talking to Adventist Health about that payment, whether or not that they should keep the rate range IGT anymore.
It seems to me that when Adventist took over, they became a for-profit facility, but before that, they were getting money from the state for being not-for-profit.
Yeah.
And this is money that the state kind of said was going to be theirs, but then Chet wrote them a letter saying it shouldn't be theirs because they're for-profit.
Wasn't it kind of a fuzzy area where they were managed by Adventist, but it was still a district?
That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's all what all that's
Okay,
discussion is about, I think.
Okay.
So Sharita's last email to me is she thinks the problem is going to solve itself. So it's just a matter of us waiting for the dust to settle on that one.
Okay. Thank you.
And so
Page 2, the statistics. We're still showing in the actual column generally lower amounts. Line 8, patient days, a little lower than budget. Line long-term care, line 25, lower than budget. And by the way, this difference of our year-to-date average daily census for long-term care, a difference of about 5 patients versus what we had in the budget. that equates to about I think $12,000 to the bottom line if we would have hit these numbers for higher census. So that's how much our bottom line was affected, not getting up to the 49 in the budget on long-term care. So it needs to continue to be a priority for the organization to try to figure out what we can do to get those numbers back up again, because I've referred to it as low-hanging fruit. It's obviously not as low as I was hoping, but I think we can still get there. ER was a little bit below budget. This isn't the right number, 611 here, so it's you ignore those numbers. The FTEs 225, that was the highest we've had as far as total staffing, 225 FTEs on line 45. So that is, you'll see that on the salaries is much higher than on the salaries than budget for the month, as we're more fully staffed now. Some departments have been able to fill positions, and then we went over on a couple departments that have been added some positions. So that's going into the new budget. We're looking closely at FTEs, as there's another requested increase of another 10 FTEs that without the volumes, it's hard to justify. So that's taking longer as we go through that process of trying to decide what's a legitimate request for higher staffing. Continues to be a challenge. And I will clean up some of these numbers in the final board report. The statistics report isn't showing all the correct.
Are these formula errors, Dave? Or?
Yes. So I apologize for that. I will clean that up in the full.
Because when you said ignore the numbers, I'm like,
Yeah.
Yeah, this is the first I noticed that that budget column looked goofy. So
okay. Well, thank you for clarifying.
The next thing I'm also looking at year end, and I'm starting to see, because of the decline in volumes, if we get it similar in the fourth quarter, this number is probably going to be down to about 2.6 million for a year end on net income or net surplus. Keep in mind, if it ends up at about 2.6 million, it clearly would have been another 1.8 million higher, 1.9 million higher if we would have gotten that one IGT. So you add up the 2.6 and the 1.9, and that would have given us 4.5. The budget was 3.9. So we would have had a year where we beat budget if just that one thing would have changed, where we got the IGT in when we thought we should have gotten it in. Then we would have beat budget by several $100,000. But in this case, I'm starting to think we're probably going to finish the year around 2.6 due to the lower volumes.
Hey, Catherine, I think had a question, Dave.
Yeah, my question,
Go ahead.
you're getting pretty good at my reading this right here.
That's what people tell me.
My question is then, and we're talking about, I want to go back to the monies that we're going to be receiving like a year later than we normally would. So everything's like 10 months to a year. So how are we going to make sure are we just going to take that out of the budget and move it to export?
We call that an explainable variance. Once the budget's approved, it is what it is. Sometimes we have to make other adjustments somewhere else in the organization if it looks like it's going to cause major harm to the organization financially. For example, if you had some big $5 million lawsuit or something that was major and we didn't have the money to pay for it, we might have to have special meetings and talk about doing layoffs and, all kinds of things you have to change if something new comes up that's a surprise. But in this case, it's just a few months delay. It's not a real big deal. It's not like it's a cut. It's just a matter of explaining. It's an explainable variance to the board that this is why we're probably not going to hit our budget, is because of a line item in the state program didn't get paid when they said it was going to get paid.
And so Then is it feasible to keep putting it in there when we know we're not gonna be receiving it?
I just, when I try to leave the budget column the way you approved it last year, I don't want to change the budget. It just ends up changing the projected number, not the budget number.
Right, I'm not saying this time, but maybe for the next time, or, you know what I
For
mean?
the
I just,
next fiscal year.
the nice fiscal, yeah, because
They did say that the state did say they were gonna delay that payment.
each time, but are we gonna
Time.
keep,
No, we're not gonna keep it in the budget. It'll
Yeah, I
get
took it out.
projected out in the next one, right?
Normally, if they were gonna just push that back and leave everything else alone, Catherine's right, I could have put in a second payment, which I had right here. I had another 1.8 million. I decided to take that out because I'm not gonna trust the state anymore in paying us, except that they did tell us for sure that this payment's gonna come in November. That was a recent statement that I can have a little bit more confidence in. Obviously, nothing is 100% confident when it comes to the state of California.
okay, I guess that was my question, because I just wondered, is this gonna be a continuous thing possibly?
Yeah. And it's been my experience over the last 5 years or so that it's hard to predict exactly when some of these payments are going to come in. The state's not as reliable as we'd like them to be.
Well, should we say they're gonna start coming in November instead of March? So we're not expecting them and, you know, so we're not counting them ahead of time?
Oh, yeah, you mean just kind of automatically push everything up? Don't trust any of the numbers and push them all back a few months?
Well, that's just me, because if
Uh-huh.
I don't wanna see it,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be there, and we'd be closer. We would be closer to it coming if we put it later on in the.
Yeah,
well,
I
that's
could-
me. Am I
I
making
could-
sense?
It's kind of like the same concept with the cost reports, right? When you're paying
Right.
two years out in some cases, it's
Yeah.
2 years, right?
And yeah,
Yeah, I could consider doing that. There's some logic to us knowing that they're more late more often than not, and we might as well just budget it accordingly.
okay, well, that's just my train of thought. That's not,
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
yeah, because it seems like it's here, but wait, let me explain to you why we really doing that.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It makes some sense.
Okay, well, thank you, because I was just, I don't know. It's like going shopping and my husband's like, you spent this when? It's coming out in 2 years. Don't worry about it
Yeah,
now.
and I don't like, having the report, it sounds like I'm making excuses why we're not hitting our numbers, and I'd rather be more accurate. So you can see the last 2 months, February and March, have been losses to the bottom line, mostly due to volumes. I've always emphasized cash as being the most important thing to us in terms of financial strength. That's this bottom ending cash balance number, 25,933,000, compares favorably. This is where I'm saying we're going to finish the year, to the budget where we said what you approved at 25,500,000. So it's about 400,000 better than what we had in the budget, despite all the ins and outs of the IGTs less here and there. Obviously, that 3 million ERC payment really helped that, offset all the other negative numbers, so that we finished the year with even a little bit more cash than we thought we were going to. The new line item 18 here is that new account we opened up that you approved that has US Treasuries. And you can see that's 9.5 million of monies invested. That number is going to go up to close to 18 million.
What page are you on, Dave?
Oh, I'm sorry. I moved to the page labeled on the upper right. It's page 5.
That's not the version that we have.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This page, I think I redid since I gave. So this is a more accurate page. It had that 9.5 million was, you see a much higher number on line 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
16.3.
So where we had the 9.5 million, I wanted to update you so that this was more accurate. So you could see it, it's a cash equivalent, but I'm calling it a separate category now that it's a new account. Instead of just burying it with the other cash on the report you saw, I'm showing you a little more detail that 9.5 million of that money that you see on line 3 is labeled USB funds.
And it used to be board designated funds on the.
Yeah, exactly. So we've created this new line item for future months that we're going to start showing that.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
I'm not really, well, I guess if I'm white, I'm not blonde headed or anything, but, you know, all the different changes every month it's kind of frustrating to me. And I know it's probably just me, but every month we're doing something a little different, or we don't have all the numbers, in front of us at the same time. And so that makes it a little harder to, for me to continue to follow when I, you know, like, forget about these numbers, or and I know mistakes happen and stuff, but I just feel like there's a lot of changes going on in the different types of reporting. And so I don't know.
All I can say is the changes that I try to update you on is a result of an ongoing, as new information becomes available. None of the changes affected any of the financial statements, bottom lines, the total cash numbers. I've never been wrong on any line item in
And
terms
that's
of.
not what I'm saying, Dave. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the changes in the way the forms are laid out, or adding a new thing, or moving things around.
What I will do is I will only, in the future, I'll only present the numbers that are in your packet and not deviate at all from that.
Okay, that would make it easier, unless you need to like make a summary at the end because of something that's a big change. And that's just, again, that's just my opinion.
And if you do make an update, if you forward that page, we can attach it to the invite so the board would still have access to it prior to the meeting. If there's
Okay.
something that you truly do need to change.
And the vast majority of times I'm doing that, I'm being anal retentive because I want to make sure the board gets the most current information. But I can certainly do that attachment after the fact if that's important.
Yeah, I feel that it would be important because then I have the information right in front of me. It helps me understand. And if I'm questioned by anybody,
We
I
also have
actually
an
know.
obligation to post it to our website, which
it makes a big
if
difference.
we have
Yeah.
a revised packet, then that's a problem.
That I can accommodate that.
All right, thank you. I should just stay home.
So there's nothing changed on page 7. This is the month of March. The big number, line 6, that's double digit. Negative is gross revenue, which shows volumes being less. We've had a consistent pattern of many months this year where we've had double digit negative % variances on volumes. So it's been a slower year this year. You can see even with the 7% increase last year, after 9 months, we had 9.7 million, this year 9.6 million, even with a 7% rate increase.
It's kind of like we're in a catch-22 because we put so much information into wellness
Yeah.
that we're trying to teach people how to take better care of themselves, whether it be eating, smoking, diabetic eating, or clinics, things, and then we complain because the numbers are down. Well, we've done well because we're trying to keep them. So it's kind of a catch-22. So
and thankfully other things offset.
not too healthy. Yeah, right.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm not giving up on my Jack and Coke and all that.
Nobody likes it.
Nobody likes
Right,
to quit it.
exactly, exactly. There's some things you gotta draw, but we could start serving it. Now, we might get
I
more,
like where you're.
Only during
Yeah.
finance committee.
yeah, definitely.
So another example of a moving target, I continue to have ongoing discussions with our auditor, Rick Jackson. Now he's telling me the HHS stimulus money needs to be on line 12. So I made a huge adjustment to other operating revenue, which unfortunately makes line 7 a lot bigger negative. So you see line 11 being way off budget to the negative, but a similar adjustment shows a much better. So it's just a reclass. It's not an improvement or a decline. It's just moving all the stimulus money that has come in from prior years that we're posting to the bottom line as other operating revenue instead of a discount or allowance. So that's why that's confusing.
So this is reimbursement from HHS, you said, Dave?
Yeah, now what's been confusing since I got here is to explain to you that Chet, when we received all those monies in 2021 and 2020 and 2022 a little bit, is he never showed any of that to this report. He always showed it as a payable that we have to pay it all back. So as we receive assurance from the auditors that we won't have to pay it back, I start putting some of that on. Eventually it has to show up on the profit because it's money that has come into the organization. And before I got here, he hadn't showed you guys any of that money.
I don't think we knew at the time that we didn't have to pay it back. It was still a question. I think he was
Exactly.
trying to be cautious.
Yeah, he was trying to be cautious, rightfully so. The audits hadn't been completed yet.
Right.
So now because the audits have been completed, I'm starting to show some of that money to our bottom line. And it's in the budget similar to that we put in 2 million in the budget. So it's not like it's a new amount over budget. It's just a planned amount that we're moving over that hadn't been moved over from prior years.
And this is all from the COVID era, correct?
Yeah, it's called HHS stimulus money.
Oh, okay.
And it was a total of about a little over $5 million that came in besides the PPP money that Chet hadn't recorded, had put it all into, was still waiting to see if we would have to pay it back.
Well, it was reported, but not as, it was just reported in a different spot.
Yeah, it wasn't recorded as profit or loss.
Okay.
So that's why I don't want you guys to get carried away when you see a really good profit. It might have something to do with what happened a couple of years ago.
Oh, I don't think we'll get too carried away.
I don't want you getting too happy here. But even with all that, now keep in mind, I didn't add any dollars to the bottom line. This is just moving it out of one bucket into another. I didn't add any for the HHS stimulus for the month. This was just a reclass. So we did lose almost 400,000 net operating loss and had a much higher, almost 10% over on expenses. And you can see just about every line item here from 14 to 19 is all red. We saw the FTEs were higher, and that causes salaries and benefits to be higher. Contract labor, I believe part of this contract labor includes a physician that we're now paying out of a registry type of payment. So that's a high amount of contract labor that shows up there, 73,000 over budget. That was not in the budget. I think we're going to end up hiring one physician that's an ER. This is a clinic physician, I think, or maybe it's a PA through the contract labor program.
We don't have any contract labor PAs.
Okay, so there must be something else in the clinic that's a high contract labor number that we hadn't seen before. The other line item, we had a big propane, 3 months of propane bills came in all at 1 month. And that caused the utilities to be much higher for the month.
And those are 3 different tanks, correct?
Yes, 3 different tanks. I don't know why those all showed up on the same month, but purchase services, laboratory Quest bills were higher. And also maintenance had several miscellaneous payments on contracted maintenance contracts that came in the month. So it's mostly a timing of those invoices for purchase services being higher on line 18. So the combination of the lower volumes and the higher expenses caused us to miss budget by about $500,000. Actually 672 when you include the non-operating, with a loss of 337,000 for the month of March. And keep in mind, I started this meeting to say this was going to be a negative report, but next month's will look a lot better. Year to date, we're now showing a bottom line of 874,000 compared to the budget of 2.9 million, about 2 million off budget. Still real close on the expenses, but in general, we're starting to see the inflation that's hitting us on a national level is hitting us on rate increases when we're paying invoices. They're increasing the rates on supply costs and purchase services, just like everywhere else when you go to the store, how everything is going up with inflation. We're starting to see that inflation hit our bottom line on the expenses. So I was gonna, before Mark left, I was gonna ask him a question on swing bed, but I guess he can catch that at the full board meeting. We hadn't seen any swing beds the last couple of months, and I was curious why that was. That was also part of the volume changes that we have reported.
Sometimes we just run into the mix where we don't have them. We go through periods where we have a lot of swing beds and then periods with none, but the UR girls keep a pretty close eye on that. And if a patient needs to be swung, they kind of facilitate that happening. So I think it's just coincidental.
Yes. So we want to keep a close eye on whether or not we can make improvements on some of those volume issues that I'm referring to. That's pretty much my report. If there's any other topics or questions you might have related to the financial picture.
I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Next item on the agenda is the local vendor aging summary. Barbara, do you have anything on that, or it's pretty straightforward usually? It's on page 24.
I don't have anything to add unless anybody has any questions about something particular.
Yeah, it's all current, looks like.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have any questions either, Barbara. Thank you for still doing this.
No problem.
Okay, and then Barbara, do you want to talk about the contract renewals for this month?
You can see they're all listed here. There is a slight mistake on the insight. The insight, and I think Carrie, I don't know if you wanted to address it, is the VMware, and that's a monthly fee, not an annual fee. Don't really have anything on any of the rest unless somebody has a question about anything.
So you guys can ask questions. Okay, so for the Insight Direct is a reseller. So there's, I don't know how many things we purchase through Insight, VMware, Microsoft, different services that we buy are billed through Insight. So that's why you see Insight maybe come up a lot on it. That particular thing that Barbara's mentioning is VMware, and it is annual, Barbara. VMware is annual. We had discussion today, it was the Microsoft one that's monthly. So that's what that is. It's just VMware, which is our virtualization software for all of it.
Okay, I probably mixed the two up again.
Is that ortho supply one? Is that a lab one?
Yes.
Okay.
It's probably a reagent rental agreement goes along with the equipment that they have.
Okay.
Any other questions
I
on
don't have
the
any
contracts?
questions, nothing.
All right, we'll send this to board consent. Approval.
Hey, Mark, now that you're back, I was telling the committee that I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about swing beds. I hadn't seen any activity since February. Is there any clinical reason why we're not doing those right now?
Dr. Gross and I just had a discussion about that, and the consensus was he needs to start getting back to that. But what we're finding is that the insurance companies are not improving swing bed status. They want patients discharged or just they want the minimum done. So I think that he has kept them as inpatients for a longer period of time for that reason.
And just to kind of emphasize, when we keep them as inpatients, a lot of times the actual payment has to do with a flat fee total payment for that particular stay, not how many days they stayed. So the extra days doesn't add to the payment. So that's why we put them on swing bed. We get an additional amount besides the flat acute inpatient payment, was called the DRG. So so we don't quite get as much money without the swing bed.
Okay, I will mention it to him.
Yeah, but without the authorization, we can't move them anyway.
Yeah, we really can. It explains why those numbers are lower.
Our lengths of stay are going to go up, and that's going to be a problem for us in the future. Because the average length of stay should be 4 days or less, right?
Yeah.
But now with some of the ones that we can't get well and get transferred over to swing bed, it takes away from our ability to, you know what I mean? So I'm not sure what the answer is there. I can talk to Robin Gray and see what her thoughts are regarding swing bed and lengths of stay. That's going to have to be a much more upfront focus for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. So we kind of got off topic. Barbara was presenting the contracts. I don't know if there was anything more on that agenda item.
No.
We said that consent. Next item is a capital expense request. This is for the nutrition department. Well, unit.
Yeah, and I don't have anything to add to that.
Did Tiffany talk with you about this?
Not at all.
Oh, I know that they were working on trying to repair the hot wells. They had some that were down,
Right.
and I think that they're unable to be repaired. And so it's a fairly, I won't say urgent request, but
Pretty straightforward. She does have a couple of quotes here. Looks like she wants to go with the cheaper one.
Yes. So,
The hot well is up front in the where
Yes.
I know they've been having some problems with it, yes. Current hot well unit in the cafe has a non-repairable leak per maintenance department confirmed by maintenance manager. Maintenance has had to redo the piping on the hot wells already. The wells model is the only model that fits in the current space. It likely went out of service from repeated use staff. It uses the hot food well, is aware of operation procedures and operates it as instructed. So it's telling me that it does have a problem and it is not fixable.
Yeah.
So.
I know that Christine got involved and was confirmed that it wasn't repairable, and she was the one that called to make sure that Tiffany had submitted this, so.
Do we have to do anything to install this? Do we know? I mean,
I think-
our boys can do it. It's just a swap in and out. Okay.
And it's what, 5,000? Is that what?
Yeah, 659 24 looks like.
So is that something we can approve here, or do we need to take it to the board? It's
It'll
under a
still go to
certain
the
amount, it will go to the board. So they'll get by without it till then.
I think they're looking to go on, but
Let me give them one.
the
That's
leak
good.
is a problem.
Yeah. Yeah,
I'm okay with some. So.
So we could have the manager present at the full board meeting if you wanted to postpone that, sending that on.
It's pretty straightforward.
yeah, I think it is too, John.
Anything else? Just had a quick comment, for another district that I am involved with. I went to this conference in Monterey about a month ago, and there was a gentleman from, shoot. I feel like I'm getting old. Cal Trust, I don't know if you're familiar with that, Dave. It's like
No.
it's a public agency, up in Sacramento, but they manage investments, IRAs for district agencies. I know at one time we had talked about maybe sometime down the road, maybe trying to do like retirements for employees or something. So I'm just bringing that to
Oh,
attention if it's something to possibly look into down the road.
yeah, if you have a contact, I can certainly start that process and look into it.
Okay.
Can we accelerate those retirement? Okay.
And let's take advantage of those.
It's called Cal Press
Cal Trust,
Trust.
yeah. And I think they're managed by BlackRock, I want to say, or,
Okay,
but they work with all the different special districts and district agencies in California.
oh.
Can
Okay,
you buy time?
Yeah. Yeah.
so would it be similar to what we have with the 403Bs with our pension for our employees, or would it be more like what we invest with UBS?
You know, I'm not sure, but whoever I talked to, I actually meant to bring it to the finance meeting today and I forgot. But I'll look into who the contact was and maybe can figure out the kind of compare and contrast what they do and what we're doing. So.
Yeah, it's always worth looking into something new that we could take advantage of.
And I don't think they're like the CalPERS. That's kind of a disaster.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you that acronym CALPERS, CalPERS?
Well, the one that I'm talking about is called Cal Trust.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, but CalPERS is the state agency that a lot of your public employees have retirements with.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
That's not what this is.
Yeah, that's not what this is, no.
Okay.
John first and then see.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, we're adjourned at 1:45 or 1:44. Whatever sounds better. All right,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Barbara.
Thank you.